Bellefontaine. You're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820. And we have in the studio with us today Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. Patrick, give us a rundown of why you are my favorite attorney.
Well, good morning. I'm your favorite attorney because I'm sitting across from you.
All right, there is truth to that.
That's the simple explanation. Get in touch with me. Follow me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Follow me on TikTok at Loftus Law. Those are the best places to find me.
Sounds good. And we also have Chris Engelmann, and not the gentleman whose name is up on the Facebook screen. I apologize for that. I'll get that corrected right away. Chris, tell us why you're my favorite real estate agent. And yes, you could start off with because you're right here in front of me.
That, and I'm just the best.
Why are you the best? I'm always going to call everybody on that one.
Yeah, deep existential questions in the morning.
Right?
I mean, I show up, I do good things, and
he's got a lot of experience, this guy.
You know, the beard game's been better the past couple of years. First beard I grew. So.
Did you get, you recently got married, right?
Yeah.
Did you get like the professional beard trim and all that?
Yeah, it was my first time to a barber since prior to 2012 when I started with the smooth and clean.
It's nice though, isn't it?
So yeah, I did, it taught me how to shave my own beard.
Tell you what.
So yeah.
I love it.
Beard game recognizes game.
How do they get hold of you, Chris, if they want to talk to you?
Well, my number is 312-533-6523. You can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Chris Finds a Place. And then I'm on the gram, Chris Engel Real Estate.
Is that what we're saying now? All the young kids are saying gram. I always thought it was Insta. Or is that boomer talk?
Insta, IG. Boomers don't even know what that is. They go, oh, I'm on the Facebooks. I love it. It's where all my friends from high school found me.
I still remember My Face or whatever the hell that thing was called. I forgot. What's that phone number again?
My Face.
What's that phone number?
312-533-6523.
23. Thank you so much. And then my favorite mortgage broker. Mortgage broker is online, and my son just says it's the gram. So I got to open up on that one. Joey, tell everybody why you're my favorite as well, please.
Well, I'm your favorite because I am on the phone right now at this very moment. So, I know we play favorites around here and how it happens.
Hell yeah.
Joey Mathews, the VA Loan Nerd, NMLS 1230694. You can find me on the social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd or at my website as thevaloannerd.com. And that's me. That's my spiel. Sticking to it.
I love it. And those videos you've been putting out have been phenomenal. So give me that Insta, or are you doing that on TikTok or Instagram?
I do it on all of them, but that TikTok, which is the one that went viral, is the VA Loan Nerd, but with only one N because some other jerk took my loan nerd 2 words.
You should get your lawyer involved in this. It sounds like a big deal.
I got a guy.
I got a guy. So tell me about the video you did that's going viral. What was so interesting in there? I think it was a lot to do with the VA loans.
Well, it absolutely was VA related. It's a video that I told the guy when we were shooting. I was like, this one's not going anywhere. This is completely pointless, but hey, it's still information. No, long story short, it is a program for active duty service members who are within. You can start working or getting yourself into the program within a year, but you can't start the program. It's called Skill Bridge until you have 6 months, sometimes 7 months left in service. What happens is you get paid your active duty pay along with your basic allowance for housing the entire time that you're in your program, but you're going through your internship, and your private employer will give you an offer letter with your salary, your full-time, all this good stuff, and that's the income that we can use to get you the VA loan for wherever you're going, right? So a lot of this matters because a lot of people just look at that LES, the leave and earnings statement that a military member gets, and they see that less than 12 months on there, and they know they can't do the loan. So Skill Bridge is a path for active duty members to still move forward.
No, I love it. And tell me more about what's going on in the rates. I do want to get back to the VA stuff. I just had a client that was a veteran, and he was talking about, the minimum property requirements and what needs to be done, and I was trying to coach him through that stuff. But, I want to talk to Chris first about, what's going on with NAR. And before we get to that, tell me what's going on in the finance world. You know, I'm getting a
Finance
little
world,
nervous with these, you know, Israel and
I mean, yeah,
Gaza and everything else.
we're still tight in the job market. We're still battling inflation. I think that most recently they said there's an 86% chance that the Fed raises another quarter in November, so we'll see that happen. The 10-year Treasury is almost at a 5% yield, which would be, I'd have to look at the chart, but I think the highest it's been since like 2002, so 21 years. But I mean, at the end of the day, I also see a lot of activity. So people realize when you have to buy, and rates are what rates are. And I don't know. I just can't live in a world of fear over something as silly as rate. But Gaza, that is a big deal.
That sounds like we lost Joey.
Sounds like we lost Joey.
I was going to ask him. I'd heard, and maybe Chris, you heard this as well. There was more than a couple sort of big wigs in the real estate business that were planning to petition the Fed not to raise that interest rate because, I mean, we're definitely feeling it in real estate world.
You just saw everything kind of dwindle away. Did I just break up?
Yeah, you did break up. The last thing we heard was going on into the Gaza Strip, but now that you're here, I want to hear that again, please.
Yeah, stay out of the Gaza Strip, Joey. You've done enough already.
Well, the 26th MU just got deployed there, Marine Expeditionary Unit, so it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we really see a large-scale conflict in the Middle East again, then Joey Stradamus here again, we're going to see some people fleeing to bonds for the safety. But that's obviously not the situation I wanted. I'd rather the Fed just up rates 5% right now and, get the economy into a deflationary period. I really don't care. Just don't mess with another war. I'm sick of war.
And I'm with you. And all this stuff goes back to, 2008. I keep remembering back and doing a little bit of math work, when the gas prices hit that $4.50 a gallon, all of a sudden it was like a light switch. And I forgot if it was 07 or 08, but it was right there in that ballpark. But yeah, it was like a light switch, and the real estate market just turned off. I thought that would happen around 2001 when the attacks of the country happened, but it really didn't. It lasted a long time. And then I started doing a little more research because Mr. Rabbit here has to go deep on every single hole. And $4.50 a gallon in 2008 dollars equals $6.60 in today's. And I start wondering what the hell would happen to our economy if all of a sudden gas prices were at $6.60 a gallon.
Well,
only Joey knows.
Only Joey. Oh, well, if whatever Joey says, I'm always fading it. So.
No, that sounds all right. So, Chris, since Joey is in and out all the time, and you're in, I want to get to this National Association of Realtors and more specifically about the buyer's agents. And you're going to have to correct me on this. I assume the buyer's agents are going to be able to start negotiating their own commission that comes in there.
So those are they're related conversations.
Okay.
So I work for Redfin, and roughly 2 weeks ago, I got up in the morning and saw an email from our CEO saying Redfin is leaving the National Association of Realtors, and I thought, wow. Only in markets where MLS access is, you have to have Association of Realtors membership to get MLS access, so not in those markets. And
Illinois is one
Chicago.
of those markets, right?
Yep. So here, us Redfin agents in Chicago are still Chicago Association of Realtor members, National Association of Realtor members through that.
Now, do you have to be, does it go national, then IAR for the Illinois Association of Realtors, and then Chicago?
I think it's a package deal.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I'm actually not entirely sure. I interact with CAR, as we call it, and that's about it. But yeah, so Redfin made the decision to depart in markets where we're allowed to, and not only depart, but not allow our agents in those markets to be a part of the National Association of Realtors. And there were two reasons they cited for that. The first I'll mention was more like the straw that broke the camel's back. There was alleged sexual harassment and patterns of that in national leadership, and just not something they wanted to be associated with. The other one was probably the bigger impetus, and that was that the National Association of Realtors was not allowing listings to specify 0 for a buy-side agent's cooperating commission.
Why
And they're-
would somebody want to do that, though?
So if it's it's up to the seller. I mean, the goal is obviously to pay less money and have less expense. I think the logic is let's let the buy-side agent negotiate their own commission. And typically how it's done now is there's a seller who lists and they specify a total commission, and within that agreement it specifies how much the cooperating commission is for the buy-side agent. And that's listed, and so the MLS is the listing engine. That's where all the information goes into. That's the membership, the portal that you essentially have to have access to in order to do business, because otherwise it's hard to get agent contact information. It's hard to get access. Things are just more cumbersome to work in. And so, but that specifies what the cooperating commission is. It's the same no matter who the other buy-side agent is, who's ever bringing their buyer. And that's meant to keep things fair, accessible, and protect agents from playing favorites if it's someone within their own brokerage and things like that. So, but yeah, so the Redfin is saying we think it should be allowed to say 0, and if the buy-side agent needs to negotiate that with their buyer, or the buyer doesn't want an agent and doesn't want to have an expense that way, that's up to that side.
What would a buyer's agent do then to protect themselves? I mean, to me, I'm looking at this, and I get it. There's good and bad people in this world. Mm-hmm. But let's just say that somebody calls you out, you show them 20 different houses, and then they just say, okay, you know what? I don't want to pay you anything. I don't want you to take any money. I'd rather save the money myself. And I'm going to go ahead and write up a contract and cut you out.
There would still be procuring cause involved.
What does that mean?
So procuring cause, there's kind of a number of different factors. The most common one is that I'm the one who brought them and showed them the property, and there's, if you also provide advice and comp analysis and things like that, and there's dialogue, it strengthens the case to say, you know what, I'm really actually the person who brought this buyer and helped. And in some cases, there are disputes. It's pretty common actually where I had one 2 summers ago where I brought a buyer. It was July 4th, and I don't think she had an agent, but we were the service that was available over a holiday weekend, and she must have went out and saw 10 places. I get back from being out of town myself, and we see a few more places, sit down for coffee, and then she ghosts me. No response whatsoever, and I just had a feeling. I was like, it really seemed like she liked that last one. And attorney father who might have been coaching in the background, who knows. A few weeks later, we reached out to the seller's agent and say, we saw you went under contract. By chance, is it this buyer? And said, yes, it is. And there was another agent involved, and I don't know how much that agent was told or not told. They might have had one pulled over themselves by the buyer. But we reached out to their broker and said, you know what, we provided analysis, we did the showing, we need a cut here. And often there's some sort of negotiation. If there can't be resolution, then it's like an arbitration, and it's a winner takes all for the commission in that case. So if it was someone without any agent, that would be a little bit different, but there would still be grounds for us going after it and saying, there's procuring cause. We need compensation for the service we provide.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, it's harder to maybe actually enforce that than.
Well, I mean, I think the bottom line is, the law says if you were part of the transaction, it would be too easy for people to just be like, all right, well, let's
when you say the law, are you talking about the Illinois real estate law?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't that way, people would just go around real estate brokers all the time. It can't be that way.
Mm-hmm. But the other point to your question of, agency agreements with buyers also help protect an agent. If there's a listing out there that doesn't specify any cooperating buy-side compensation, well, take someone to 25, 30 places, and then they see this listing and say, that's the one I want to purchase. You reach out to the seller and say, hey, I've been working with this person a lot, and make this process smoother. You like me, right? I'm a good guy. And they say, no, we're not paying you. 0 cooperating commission. It would be on the agent to have an agreement in place with their buyer client to protect against that and say, in the case that the cooperating commission is less than X, you'll pay this difference out of pocket. And I think it's a change that could be good for the industry. There's been changes in terms of the transparency that way. I think within the past couple of years, it used to be that you could not even show what the cooperating buy-side agent compensation was in public-facing content of listings. And I think that rule was changed. I know my company, Redfin, switched and started displaying that right away. And I forget the point I was driving at. So there's more transparency, and I think that's going to create just more of a need for buy-side agents to work with their clients and establish those sorts of expectations and agreements. And to have that transparency should be a good thing for the industry.
How does something like that affect you, Patrick? I mean, what are you going to do with these contracts? Do you think you're going to be writing more?
No, I don't think so. How does that affect me? I mean, what Chris is describing is a situation where a buyer appears unrepresented, and we're going through the process, and then all of a sudden, an agent pops up and goes, "I'm owed a commission." At that point, I would stop and I'd say to the listing agent, "You need to resolve this, because this can't be hanging over my seller's head past closing, and I don't think the buyer wants that either. So you need to work something out here." And really, it highlights, this isn't just advice in the real estate realm, but get it in writing. You know, if you're going to represent someone, especially at the amount of money that is at stake in a real estate commission, if you think that it is okay for you to go around representing people without a written agreement, you're going to run into a problem. You're going to run into a number of problems. Yeah, sometimes it'll go fine, but without that piece of paper that spells out what you're meant to get, there are going to be instances where you're not going to be left with anything to stand on, and you're going to have done a bunch of work for nothing.
And Chris,
there's plenty of clients out there who they seem trustworthy until they're not, and so
that's human.
And then
that's where I was going.
As an agent, you're asking yourself, what am I requiring people to do that other people aren't? You don't want to have a higher barrier of, getting going with them necessarily. So there's some trade-offs there. If everyone else isn't doing these agreements right away, or one of your advantages is that you are open access, and it's maybe a downstream ramification is that if this change becomes more common, it'll force buyers to, actually have things more clear and transparent with the agent up front instead of just requesting a tour and getting out there. And that could be good. It could result in access issues too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, part of my process, if someone, excuse me, someone expresses an interest in retaining my services, that triggers me to send out my retainer agreement, my engagement letter. And if someone balks at that, to me, that signifies someone who might be a problem down the road. And I certainly get not wanting to have that net be so loose that you're letting clients slip through it. However, I don't want to snare people who are going to, who have bad intentions, the intentions that you're describing, Charlie. You wouldn't go out, for example, and conduct an inspection until someone went through the process of hiring you and each of what that entails.
Well, that's actually written in the home inspector law. All right, we cannot start a home inspection without having a signed agreement with our client.
That's smart. The law's protecting you in that instance.
Well, this is where I was kind of going to go, is why don't we just talk with the Illinois Association of Realtors, CAR? They're a very powerful lobby group. I want to say they got something like anywhere from 15 to 20 lobbyists out there, and us home inspectors, we got one. And don't get me wrong, she's fantastic. But why don't they just say that you can't show a single house until you have a buyer's agreement done? That would solve a lot of these problems. And maybe I'm dumb and I'm just underthinking or overthinking it, but tell me.
One is you would have an enforcement problem. This number changes every week, but let's say there's 80,000 real estate brokers out there, and they're all going around doing things. Who's enforcing it? And at what point? I think I don't want to step on your toes, Chris, but where do you pass that threshold between I am meeting someone at a property to show them, and I'm meeting them for the first time, as opposed to I'm actually representing them?
Yeah, it's it's an online world out there. Part of it is we're trying to prove ourselves. No one's going to pull me offline. Well, I shouldn't say no one, but most people aren't going to pull me offline, sign an agency agreement with me. So there's something to be said for, if this world was different and it's up to the agent to figure this all out, and that's more common practice, then I think I would still probably give a person 1 or 2 tours for free just to kind of prove myself and show that I know my stuff and build some trust.
But all that could be built into things. And to answer your question, Patrick, the IDFPR, they're the ones that have the power, the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. That's who governs the real estate brokers, the appraisers, home inspectors.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that is the simple answer to my question is that. However, how many more people are they going to need to police that particular I think that would be, almost a paradigm shifting, rule that you would put in place. And if there are legitimate sanctions imposed on someone who goes out there and is representing buyers or sellers, I think it's less likely you'd represent a seller without a written listing agreement. But who meaning, of the people at I always mix this up, IDFPR, which one of them has additional time to start looking after that?
All right. Well, first of all, IDFPR does not or they have no policing service whatsoever. All right, that needs to be understood. What they do is their investigators will only investigate a complaint. So, to me, this is kind of, again, on the easier side. I go ahead and show somebody, I have an agreement with them, they go to somebody else. I got this piece of paper, I filed a complaint against the other agent, and then legally I'm protected.
Well, that's different. I think
what
we're talking about is having a requirement that everyone have a written contract.
And that says when you first meet somebody, get in there.
But the complaint then would be that they represented me or someone else without a contract. So now we're relying on people reporting that. I don't know. I guess I don't see it likely that people are going to be out there going, this guy showed me a place before making me sign a piece of paper.
Right, but then he's not going to have a leg to stand on if he complains about somebody else getting the commission.
Or I'm going to say I recall a situation 3-4 years ago. It was a client that I'd been out with once, checked up a week later, and she's like, actually, I just went under contract with someone else. What happened is I requested a tour, I showed up, and right before we walked in, he pulled out this agency agreement and said, I'm going to show this to you, you have to sign this. She didn't realize she was signing up to pay extra commission on top of the cooperating commission. She got conned.
Wow.
That was a sleazy move. And
I think done with refinances.
That would just be how it would be most expedient. Show up here, I'll sign this, we'll go in. A good agent, someone who has their interests in mind, would at least explain what this is ahead of, the 5 minutes. If you want to see this, come inside and sign this.
Here's the QR code.
But I was going to say another piece of that conversation too is, so much of housing access is a consideration and fair access for everybody, and that would just present additional challenges that way. I went out on the first tour last night with a client who's deaf. I don't know ASL. We got by, we actually like handwriting notes on the back of a piece of paper to ask questions about garage parking and things like that. And, if she's open to working with me, we can do it. There'll just be more email and maybe like Google Chat conversations and things like that.
That's actually pretty cool in its own way. And you're going to get me sidetracked on ASL stuff real quick and easy.
Funny, I looked up how to say hello and I was like, okay.
Joey would appreciate that.
With like every foreign language, the only words I ever learn are the swear words. So I could say about 4 swear words in sign language.
I think I remember from Mr. Holland's Opus growing up how to say one. But anyway,
I love that movie.
What you want, so if you're going to visit a country, learn how to say hello, learn how to say thank you, learn how to say water, and learn how to say beer.
And bathroom, right? That's kind of important too.
Bathroom is, fair enough.
And then for some reason, I learned library all the time first. I don't know why I want to go to a library and read books in another language that I can't understand. But again, we're getting sidetracked, and I want to talk more.
Just walk up to someone, do the pee-pee dance, you're good.
There it is. I like that. Jump up and down and wiggle the legs together. Unbelievable. But no, I'm going to talk more. What's your plan if all this goes through? Do you have a plan, or are you guys still trying to hash it out?
Since Redfin left, there's been a few more major brokerages that have followed suit. So it's good because, as you read that, one of my teammates said, a deal that was under contract, the agent's like, well, how am I going to pay you now? He's like, no, I'm still a Chicago Association of Realtors member. It's the same. So it really doesn't affect us locally, but we're still wondering, are we going to, is there going to be disdain, frustration from other agents expressed to us? And that's not, I haven't experienced any of that yet. I think if I remember,
Redfin already has enough disdain from other agents already. Who are you kidding? You
one agent a couple of years ago was like, I hate you guys, but I love you because, like,
exactly. I hear that a lot.
There's a lot of transactions that happen, and it's, all Redfin agents are.
Machine. I mean,
the sales
it's been a game changer for sure, and we've prided ourselves on pushing the industry, and I'm encouraged that they are. I remember my first year, one of our higher ups was in town and just made the point. It was about something that wasn't the best for job security for myself long term, but he said, if we don't do this, someone else is going to, and it's like, you can't argue with that.
Yep.
You do have to stop and just think, like, what is good for the industry, and if your role isn't good for the industry, then time to find a new role, right?
You have to be evolving and working through.
Landscape's always changing.
Yeah,
and challenge people and challenge yourself and try to go ahead. Let other people chase you. Is my philosophy in this business.
In some ways, that's what these lawsuits are. They're forcing some change.
Yeah,
leaving NAR in a sense is a defensive move. If NAR loses these lawsuits, I don't see a path forward for NAR, to be honest.
Yeah, these are
they're too big. You think that they would have a worthless need?
If a court rules that the regime that they're basically built to back is not legal, they will have to completely change. And I don't see, other than their function as maintaining the status quo there, I think that everything else they do is probably a far cry from, in importance from that function. Maybe
now,
that's a cynical look.
Now, the National Association of Realtors has since changed their policy and said it's allowed to list with a zero buy-side cooperating commission.
I was under the impression that as of the 31st of this month, they're no longer going to be putting the broker co-ops on the listings.
That's news to me. That would certainly change things very quickly.
I would confirm that, because I'm speaking that this is definitely me hearing from someone else who probably heard from someone else. But something like that's coming down the pipe, I'm pretty sure.
Well, your memory's a lot better than mine, so and yeah, that would be. But if they did that, then we go back to the way it was. Am I wrong?
See, to me, that it's a bit of malicious compliance, because they're sort of saying, well, you don't like this regime that we have set up. We're gonna do it your way. We're gonna leave it up to, to chance what the cooperating broker is going to get.
That sounds so passive aggressive. It's unbelievable.
Well, I think that's part of it, because they're like, hey, all of you buyers brokers, what you're going to get paid is a surprise. What's behind door number 2.
There was a word for that in management school, something about, agreeing, knowing that it's going to go bad. I forget what the word is.
Yeah, it's you just go, all right, I'll show you what you think is the solution. I'll show you just how bad that's going to go. Will it go bad? I don't know. Get some popcorn. There's going to be a lot of industry reconfiguration if that, especially if that's a quick kind of overnight change instead of something gradual. Yeah, I've said before, I see really kind of 2 extremes as far as the path forward. One is the powers that be circling the wagons, and I say powers that be, they certainly have power and influence to, adjust to whatever the new, regulatory or whatever the scheme has to adjust to, just to maintain the status quo. And then, on the other end of the spectrum, I see perhaps a number of people sensing an opportunity and just, jumping in, because there will no longer be this, large organization able to maintain a status quo, because the status quo has been determined to be not legal.
I think that, well, first of all, Patrick, if somebody has more questions about this on the attorney level, how do they get hold of you?
Don't ask me about this, but ask me about real estate, specifically Chicago area real estate. Find me at Loftus_law on Instagram, on TikTok at Loftus Law.
Sounds good. And Chris, how do they get hold of you, please?
I'll give my phone number, 312-533-6523, and then Facebook.com/Chris Finds a Place, and Instagram, Chris Engel Real Estate.
Sounds good. And Joe, are you back with us at all?
Oh, I'm in a computer and everything,
Hey,
man. Shoot.
there he is.
Oh, outstanding.
There he is.
He escaped from the well. That's so I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah, but I got that connection email. It's like, no, it's too early.
So how do they get hold of you, Joey?
Yeah, you could call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at the VALoanNerd.com or across all of the social medias is at the VA Loan Nerd. Or you know what? You could email me at show@thehomebuyer'shour.com.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
That's what's up.
Exactly. So, Joey, you were talking about, the going on in the Gaza and Israel, and
Let's
then
talk
you got
about that.
cut out. Well, it
super
does
fun
affect
times.
what's happening here.
Yeah.
As much as we don't. I mean, there's 2 carrier groups. There's more deployments that are going in there.
Let's take sides and really, really go hard on one side or the other. That would be really good for all
I'm
of
going
us.
to go on the side of the United States of
At
America.
least
I'm
this isn't
sorry.
about religion or politics, anything. It'd be,
Oh, let's
I love
talk
it. I love it.
religion. Yeah.
But how does that
Can
affect...
we wait for Thanksgiving to do this?
No.
My
We
uncle's
need
not here.
all the
Wait.
crazy uncles listening right now.
I'm throwing the malarkey flag on
on
myself.
himself. But no, the way I see things, and I'm always a big factor on fuel prices. That's how that's what I think is the number one
Says the guy driving an electric car.
factor of what happens with our economy. And
Yeah.
I know if our military is a big use of petrol, so yeah, I used a new word. And then, but if we're
God
going to be
save the
putting
king.
machines and boats and planes and stuff in the air, and we're actually going to be using them, that's going to cost a lot of money in petrol, and that's going to be, supply and demand. It's going to cause our prices to go up. Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're good. And I mean, unfortunately, we sold off 40% of our oil reserves over the last couple years too.
Oh.
So I mean, it's not helping.
If a liter of petrol costs £5, I don't know if I can afford it.
All right. I don't even know how to respond to that, Joey.
Oh my God.
And then the
Oh,
next
let
thing
me help
is,
you
if
fly.
we're going to go Harry Potter, let's just go that route. Yeah, throw another one at yourself. But
Oh my God.
But I was saying it's $4.50 in the past in 0708, which equivalents to $6 and roughly 60 cents in today's dollars. It's I don't want to see it go that. I think that's going to put a big hurt on especially on real estate. My argument has always been, food, water, shelter, but you got to work, you got to make money. So
Yeah.
and if you have to drive to work, you're going to pay the gas prices. Well, then you're going to cut out on other things such as entertainment, travel, and then those industries are going to be harmed, and they're going to start laying people off. And if somebody can't work, they can't pay their mortgage. And granted, it takes a couple years before all that rolls out, so there's still time, but it's something to plan for. Am I psychotic,
Yeah.
Joey?
No, you're not psychotic.
That is a
It's,
lie.
The fuel price is
special.
going up
You're
is going to
special.
kill my cheap flight side hustle.
They're going to have to pay
Yeah,
extra
you're-
for the fuels. But
Yeah,
is that
people
something
still
that
be
we
able to
should be
take
keeping
back
an
if
eye
you-
on? Am I thinking way overboard, or do the
No,
new
no,
laws
I
in the
mean,
banks protect all that?
It's the laws in the banks. There's not going to be a protection for that. It's simple supply and demand. And whatever kind of trade agreements we have, that's what's going to affect our oil prices, right? There's nothing that's going to protect oil prices from doing things outside of actual price gouging.
But we
But no,
pump a lot of
yeah.
oil here in this country, and if oil prices do go up, you're going to see even more, drilling in this country because
Oh,
it will
yeah.
become economically feasible. And there's also other levers they could possibly pull by being a little bit more cozy with Venezuela, as much as politically that would be, unsavory would be one way to put it.
No, for sure. I'm just for me, I'm just so worried about Gaza and the war itself. I have a hard time even worrying about the financial side, just because I have so many friends that are, they're going over. Like that's so I'm having a hard time with the conversation when I'm thinking about how it's affecting the economy, how it's affecting the rate market when I'm looking at the human price of war. So I apologize for my terrible responses today.
Oh, don't apologize, Joey. The point you're bringing up is, I think, one that should be brought up as much as possible because, look, it's easy for us to sit here in this studio and for me to sit on my couch making TikToks and thinking, wow, gas prices are really high, and I'm really bummed about that. And it does affect people here, but not in the way that you're describing. And, I'm sorry to anyone who has to, tighten the belt because of fuel prices going up. But, I'm with Joey on this one.
No, and I agree, too. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see anybody. I am a pacifist. I'm not afraid to say that. But there's bad people in this world that want to take advantage and want to go ahead and make other people do their will or their whims, Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the driving force to stop people from going ahead and trying to take over or take what you have, then they're just going to take it. I'm sorry. Humans aren't all that great. All right. And we do have a lot of bad people in this world.
I mean, the few that are of that ilk, unfortunately, there's not that many of them, but they tend to wield a lot of influence, unfortunately.
It's hard to read. I think I read a story last night of a hospital being bombed and 500 people dying, and it's just a hard thing to read.
Yeah. It's a horrible thing to read. It's a horrible for.
I'm watching that right now.
Yeah, it's the kidnappings. It's everything else that's going on. Children, and I haven't seen it. I don't know. I don't really want to see it. But when you're talking about public beheadings, children, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? What is with this world? And is that a fight worth fighting? Hell yeah, it is. I'm sorry. And I will make my political stand on that one. So, and even with this poor kid on the south side, there was another thing. I had a client that was going to do a follow-up.
Yeah, I saw that. Jesus.
But again, it's that guy is a brain-dead nincompoop. That's Charlie's opinion only, and not the radio station. So I'm coming back to my opinion only. But I'm going to give him and let him off the hook a little bit because there's so many people out there right now that are spewing all this hate, and they're getting everybody all worked up, and they're aggravating them. And then all of a sudden, and I said this time and time again, anger motivates action. And you get somebody angry enough, and they don't even know what they're mad at, and they take it out on this poor 6-year-old kid. It's like, what the hell is wrong with us? And we're still doing it, Joey. We're still out there spewing this hate, and this show is about real estate, not about politics, so I apologize.
Do you know what this reminds me of? If you've ever seen Hamilton, everyone's looking at me. So I'm a bit of a freak. I've listened to the soundtrack hundreds of times. But when they're going through the whole situation with when Philip Schuyler dies in the duel, and then finally Thomas Jefferson comes up and goes, "Can we get back to politics?" And they're like, "Yes," because it's like such a, tear-jerking, heart-wrenching situation.
I'm sorry.
Can we get back to real estate?
This was fun.
No, but there's a lot of stuff like that that's going on. And if we start putting boots, too, in Ukraine, and I get it, because they're not in NATO. I know.
That won't happen.
I know, because they're not in NATO, but Israel is. So we are going to be putting boots on the ground there. All right? Now, hopefully that we could do, it's going to be such an overwhelming force that everything will go easy. But, we are going to feel this. We here in the real estate market, the financial market, we're going to feel it. I
mean, if we want to go down this rabbit hole.
I go down that rabbit hole. Chris, you were going to say something?
Oh, I just said there's a lot of unknowns.
There is a lot of unknowns.
I heard someone say it's okay to chase the bunny trail if you catch the bunny. I don't know if we can catch that one.
I don't think I ever did catch a rabbit, no matter how deep I went into that hole. It's just unbelievable. So poor Patrick's rolling his eyes at me every time I say that. And I know there's something that is inappropriate about that phrase, but I just haven't figured it out yet.
I'm a sicko. It's my fault.
That's okay, being a sicko. So, Christopher, going back to, NAR is one thing. Mm-hmm. do you guys have a plan, or are they just waiting to figure this out? You know, like plan A, let's say NAR does away with the sellers determining what the buyer's agent is allowed to receive. Let's say they do away with that. What do you think is going to end up being the plan?
So if that's what Patrick mentioned, where it's not even allowed to be listed on the MLS listing, that would be a major change. And
for the good or for the bad?
Depends.
Both. Yeah. Yes.
Tell me what's the good
I think
and
there
the
would
bad,
be
please.
some of the bad. Well, let's start with the good. There would be more transparency for the consumer. I think it could lead to more efficient transactional expenses for the seller, so they can ultimately keep more of their equity in their property. So that could be good for the industry. I think it would definitely complicate the transactional process. There's a lot right now that doesn't come up and get complicated because it's fairly standard that way, and commissions aren't typically negotiated. They're not typically things that get in the way or come after things. And if sellers are playing games, and it's one thing if it's discovered during the transaction and it can be resolved before the closing table. If it comes to light 6 months after, well, now your recourse is to file a suit, and that's where it probably won't be practical in a lot of cases to do that, and it could lead to all sorts of other practices to try and protect against that scenario.
I think if I'm a real estate broker, one thing I would probably want to start doing is setting up an expectation with my client that, look, I'm meant to get paid a certain amount, okay? And, whether it's through, setting up a minimum with your client and saying, my expectation is that, you're going to make up the difference here. I would also want to be talking to listing brokers when I'm going to write up an offer. I'd say, look, I need to know what the broker co-op is here so that we can set the proper expectations here.
That already lends towards problems. If I reach out to a list agent and you're like, oh, yeah, we've done deals together, I know you're reasonable, and they're telling me, oh, co-op commission's 2.5%. Someone else is reaching out and they say 1.5%. Well, now you already have unequal access. There's an equal cooperation ability.
Well, if you're a listing broker and you're giving different numbers to different people, you're going to have a big problem.
Because what's to stop that?
It's going to get discovered, and you're going to have a massive class action suit because it's not likely to get discovered on the first go around. But people talk. All right, so you get 6 months into that being your practice, a year, 18 months, 2 years, however many people you have done that to, you're talking about class action, and it's not something where it's like, well, I made a mistake. It's like, no, you did that on purpose, so it's going to be on you. You're not going to be saved.
I think
by
it would
insurance.
be phone call conversations, and I think it would be hard to discover and enforce. Right now, a similar analogous thing is, as a seller's agent, you have a fiduciary duty to present all offers to your client. There are definitely situations out there. I've talked to other agents who, they've made strong offers with their clients, been told, no, we want a different offer, and you're like, but this was cash, $10K over lists, quick closing. It was like, what? Why on earth would you go for the different one? What was better? And then 2 months later, it closes for $15,000 under their offer, and it's like this, for whatever reason, this agent didn't actually show this to the seller,
and that's
why.
That's
at that point, are you going to actually spend your time suing and going after that?
Well, I would pose the same question to the 3 sets of plaintiffs that filed these lawsuits that are currently pending. It will take a lot of that going down to trigger someone, a crafty plaintiff's lawyer, to think, there's something here. Yes, can you get away with deceptive practices? Sure, yeah, if you're clever and you just hope you don't get caught. Hoping you don't get caught is, well, I wish you the best of luck. That you never.
Everybody gets caught.
Eventually, what ends up happening is you'll get sloppy. You'll say something to the wrong person. You'll be at an event having a chit chat conversation, and I'll be, overhearing it, and I'll go, that's interesting, and all of a sudden I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine who does class action lawsuits of this nature, and they'll go, something I should investigate. And next thing you know.
But who is the class action lawsuit going after? The National Association of Realtors or some other entity allowing this? Because if it's an agent doing this, I mean, go after that one agent, but you can't go after all agents.
I'd go after the brokerage. So if they're with, Joe Smith Brokerage, which I'm using that as kind of a stand-in because I don't want to name anyone and perhaps, affect their reputation just by using a hypothetical. But let's say they're a big brokerage, and I find out one of their top producers is getting up the monkey business. Boy, there's some deep pockets there that I might decide that it's worth going after.
But if it's I'm hearing, so somebody made an offer, and the listing broker did not present the offer to the person selling the home. That's against the law in the IDFPR.
Yeah, it is.
That's not a lawsuit. That's a complaint to the IDFPR.
But
you can prove it.
I think the scenario that I'm painting is where
if you can prove it is big.
What we were first talking about is, you calling the listing broker and asking them. So it's not going to be listed on the listing, but you call them up and you go, hey, is this a 2.5? Is it a 1.5? Is it a 0? I would assume, especially if I was calling someone who I thought was someone with a good reputation, that they would be straightforward with me, so that I can then have a discussion with my client about, they're only offering a 1% broker co-op, and what our agreement is that I'm going to get 2.5, and so understand that when you offer on this property that there's a delta you're going to have to make up. The situation Chris is presenting is that the listing broker that I'm calling is then giving a different number to another broker who they have a different relationship with. So say I'm not with Chris's brokerage, I'm with a different one, and he gives me a lower number than someone who's with his brokerage who he gives a higher number to. That would be, I think, at best deceptive, if not, just downright illegal.
And it's the sort of thing where the vast majority of agents wouldn't play shady games like that, but there would be some that would. And, as the rules change, the enforcement and the governing agencies will adapt, but there will be a lag, and there will be an opportunity for people to slide through the cracks in the meantime.
But I'd also think that broker co-op would be in the listing agreement. It wouldn't be something that would necessarily be a moving target.
Yeah, you're right.
It has to be, doesn't it?
So if there are games being played, it would have to be coordinated between the seller's agent and their seller.
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily legislate for someone who's willing to be deceptive, to be underhanded, to do things that are unethical, illegal. That's the exception. I don't generally want to set up. I don't necessarily want to assume that the majority of people are going to choose the unethical, illegal, But
the goal is just to set up the rules in a way that doesn't give people the opportunity as much as you can. No system can be perfect. There's always going to be, foul players who step around things. And
so let's say that I'm a buyer. Mm-hmm. I hire you, Chris, to be my real estate agent. You show me one house. I said, okay, this is it. We're going to buy this house. All right. Mm-hmm. And we put it on there. I'm a little bit, I don't want to go up any higher. They don't want to come down any lower. And I'm like, come on, Chris. You unlocked one door.
Sure.
All right. I gave you the old degrading thing. You unlocked one door. That's all you did. You put some blanks on a piece of paper.
It's a fair argument at that point. Like,
right.
If it comes back to, the nature of agency agreements, and it's, at the beginning. So if, let's say you have that agreement set up before that, I mentioned I might do 1 or 2 tours for free. And before I feel like, okay, I've established trust, let's formalize this if we want to continue. If I showed you that first home and you want to offer, like, I think, there could be logic that says, sure, like, okay, let's do this. If you've already signed an agreement and, I've then leaned in and saying, if I'm showing you 100 places for 2 years, the agreement probably wouldn't run that long. But I'm essentially committing and saying, I'm going to, do this for the same compensation no matter how long it takes. And the argument is sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's unexpectedly long. But no, that to your point, I think it's fair for buyers to negotiate that way. It could certainly change the industry, change a lot of brokerages' practices for sure.
Yeah,
but it's not common.
It's not, no. And I think some people they just really do value the service. Some of it is maybe people just not wanting to go there and be impolite or risk offense to someone that's trying to build. The client's often trying to build good rapport with me as well. But I think it a lot of buyers do want their representation. They completely understand there's a service being provided and there's expertise, and then it's just a question of how much. In that case, if it depends on the situation too. In some cases, unlocking one door and showing one house, writing a contract, you could still provide savings if you're seeing value in a way that's saving them money.
I mean,
So-
we know that there's a lot more that happens
know.
after the contract happens. And, for me, I'm not a real estate broker, but if I do have that sort of unicorn where we unlock one door and they go, I want to write an offer, you've got to sign an agreement with me that I'm representing you, because writing an offer for someone is a big deal. Okay, so you're filling out a form. It's a big deal.
It's still a whole home there. It's a big life move they're making, and you're still the trusted counsel in their corner.
There's a lot of things you can either get really right or get really wrong filling in those blanks. And if you don't know, like let's say you're representing a buyer in Cook County and they are in a part of the county that's in a reassessment year. That's important. That's a potentially thousands of dollars mistake you could make if you don't know that little detail.
Do you keep
A
track
client
of that?
last year
Oh, absolutely.
purchased a home for $775 or thereabouts. It was assessed at 1.2, and so there's a tax appeal in progress.
Right.
Believe it or not, we negotiated a $50,000 escrow holdback to cover 5 years of the difference.
I do believe it.
The assessment didn't work out, and they have protection for 5 years of that tax difference.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy.
That's a big thing. Anytime you're in a reassessment year
It's
in
a lot
Cook
of
County,
money.
and even when I'm not in a reassessment year, when I get a contract, and I'll always go to the assessor's office website to see if there's any change, because there can be, and there's a lot you can glean as far as this is one of those where he holds up the number 3, and then I
Or
get
the
into
number
a whole,
2.
the whole topic. Just suffice to say that's just one area where someone with expertise can get you to a $50,000 escrow holdback to protect you. Whereas
Knowledge is power.
if you're going in blind, you go, well, you won't even know what you don't know, and all of a sudden you get a tax bill the following year that should have been part of the credit you got from the seller, and you're way short.
The challenge as a buyer, sorting out an agreement and valuing your representation at the beginning is the buyer's journey is an unknown. And it's hard to know. Sometimes the biggest value you're offering is don't buy this one, and sometimes it's coaching on the specifics and figuring out how to maximize value and
helping
negotiations.
them understand. Yes, this is a good one, or no, you should really be careful here.
How to figure out an
Empower
agreement
everybody
that
with
fits all of
knowledge.
the.
We are running out of
Okay.
time right now. I'm sorry, Chris. But how do people get hold of you if they have questions?
You can call text 312-533-6523, facebook.com/Chris Finds a Place, and then on Instagram at Chris Engel Real Estate.
And I got to give you credit. When it comes to real estate websites, Redfin, I use it all the time. They crush.
You
That's
and a lot of the consumers out there. So,
Amen.
Yep.
And Patrick, how do they get hold of you?
For everyone that has had to suffer through the froggy in my throat, I think whatever allergen is out there causing this, follow me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok at Loftus Law.
And Joey, give us your contact info.
Well, you could call or text me at 630-235-2405. Find me at thevaloannerd.com or across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd.
Sounds good. And Henry, thank you for being the producer. Devin's out this week. My name is Charlie Bellefontaine with Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. If you have any questions home inspection related, thank you for listening. Again, my name is Charlie.